Up on the interview George gave to us, where he said that maybe the delay in his own contract was because it was only natural that conversations with the likes of Verstappen were ongoing. Are such conversations ongoing, Toto?
First of all, there is no delay in George's contract negotiations because it's pretty clear since a long time what our timings were and are, and we've known each other for such a long time, and so there is no such thing as a delay. But also, as a team principal responsible for the best car brand in the world, it's clear that you're exploring what a four-time world champion is going to do in the future, and that could be long into the future, and that's clear. But that has no effect on us putting a signature on George's contract.
So, what tentative conversations with Max's people is that the best way to understand it about maybe the future beyond next year potentially?
Yeah. I think it's also a long-term perspective, and to understand what is the framework that you're operating under, no more, no less.
So would you say George is the likeliest to be in your car, likelier than Max next season?
Yes.
Absolutely. And he's not disappointed by this at all. You sense he's perfectly accepting of all that.
What we're trying to do in the team is to be transparent as good as we are. You can either choose of holding things under wraps, or like we've done in the last 10, 12 years that I've been there, is putting it out there and say this is the situation. These drivers are clever people, they talk with each other, and I'm always open about these things, and I'm saying it how it is, and there is no such thing as saying, we're going to sign Max, because this is so far away that it's not realistic at that stage. So with George, we talk about everything.
Can you imagine Max Verstappen wearing silver, driving for Mercedes? Well, Toto Wolff is negotiating more seriously than you think. But the hidden clause in his contract could give this whole plan an unexpected twist. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, do you see Verstappen at Mercedes in 2026? What's making Verstappen and Red Bull rethink his future right now? In this video, we're going to break down all the rumors, leaks, and technical details that explain why Verstappen could be closer to Mercedes than anyone expected. Max Verstappen has been Red Bull's biggest star for years, and the man who has returned the team to the top of Formula One. His contract, signed in 2022, theoretically binds him until 2028, guaranteeing stability and continuity for a project that seemed unstoppable. However, behind those multi-million-dollar clauses lies a much more open scenario than most imagine. According to several sources, Verstappen could have avenues for early departure if certain sporting objectives are not met or if structural changes occur within the team, such as the departure of key figures he considers indispensable to its performance. In this context, the pressure has increased. Red Bull has felt McLaren and Ferrari closing in on them on the track, and that small gap of uncertainty has become an opportunity for Mercedes to enter the fray. Toto Wolff, the head of the German team, has publicly confirmed that he is exploring the possibility of adding Verstappen to his lineup for the 2026 season, when Formula One will debut a new hybrid engine cycle. This statement is neither a coincidence nor a mere hallway rumor. It is the clearest sign yet that Mercedes wants to prepare a coup capable of restoring the prominence lost since the Hamilton era. For Verstappen, this approach has not gone unnoticed. Although he is currently focused on defending his position with Red Bull, the idea of being part of a powerful new technical project may be tempting. Mercedes is planning a next-generation power unit that, according to initial reports, could restore the team to the hegemony they have dominated since 2014. Max knows this, and although his commitment to Red Bull remains strong, he cannot ignore that the competitive landscape could change radically in the next 2 years. In recent weeks, the specialized press has picked up a piece of information that has shaken the paddock. Mercedes has delayed George Russell's contract renewal because it is holding discreet talks with Max Verstappen's entourage. This isn't just speculation, but a move that fits with Toto Wolff's confirmation, who openly admitted that he hasn't ruled out a deal with the Dutchman for 2026. Behind these statements lies much more than diplomacy. Mercedes is seriously considering the possibility of seating Max alongside Russell, or even replacing him if necessary, with the aim of building the strongest possible lineup for the start of Formula One's new technical era. The story gains even more weight because it's not just Mercedes that has reportedly approached Verstappen. Ferrari is also being talked into playing a supporting role in this operation, at least trying to ascertain whether the world champion might be willing to negotiate if Red Bull doesn't meet its sporting objectives. Although the Scuderia, according to the leaks, has not made any progress in concrete talks, the mere existence of contacts reflects that several leading teams understand that Verstappen is the ultimate driver on the market, and that no contract, no matter how ironclad it may seem, is completely sealed if circumstances change. Another factor fueling these rumors is Red Bull's current form. The team has demonstrated a certain vulnerability at circuits where it previously dominated without question, and internal pressure has grown following the latest wave of improvements from McLaren and Ferrari. This situation has opened a small window for Verstappen's entourage to evaluate medium-term alternatives, aware that the driver market could change drastically with the arrival of the new technical regulations in 2026. Rumors also suggest that Helmut Marko, a key player in Max's confidence within Red Bull, could be decisive. If his position within the team changes, Verstappen would have grounds to activate exit clauses that currently seem almost impossible to enforce. In this environment filled with speculation and leaks, any phrase is magnified. George Russell publicly acknowledged that he was aware of these conversations with Verstappen, although he defended his absolute loyalty to Mercedes. Meanwhile, several fan and journalist forums have raised the idea that Toto Wolff would be willing to sacrifice one of his current drivers if it meant signing Verstappen, upsetting all internal balances to guarantee the most high-profile signing on the grid. Red Bull knows it's playing a very delicate game with Max Verstappen. Their undisputed star has been the key to their success for years, but they're also aware that, given his level of performance, any top team in the world would be willing to open their doors to him without hesitation. Red Bull management has made it clear publicly that their top priority is to retain him and strengthen their project around him, especially ahead of 2026, when the series will completely change with the arrival of the new hybrid engine regulations. However, the tension is real, as the car's performance this year hasn't lived up to expectations, and this factor fuels Verstappen's doubt about whether Red Bull can remain competitive in the coming years. Max, for his part, maintains a discourse of loyalty, but with nuances. He has repeatedly reiterated that he trusts the team and that his contract binds him until 2028, although he has also issued clear messages about his frustration with the latest updates to the RB21. He knows better than anyone that in Formula One, you can't give away time, and the possibility of Mercedes starting 2026 with a technological advantage could be too tempting to dismiss so soon. Furthermore, the internal situation at Red Bull doesn't help. Helmut Marko's position, one of Verstappen's greatest supporters within the team, is not guaranteed for the future, and that element could become a trigger if tensions deepen. The pressure in the Milton Keynes garage is felt race after race. Red Bull remains confident it can improve its car with new parts and aerodynamic tweaks, but McLaren's dominance and Ferrari's aggressiveness in its technical development have put a team unused to being trailing on the ropes. This is forcing management to move quickly, both technically and contractually, to send Max the message that they remain the best option for his future. The idea is to avoid any cracks that Mercedes could exploit to seduce him with promises of a solid, powerful project ready to dominate the new hybrid era. If Max Verstappen were to decide to leave for Mercedes, the impact would be enormous, not just for Red Bull, but for the entire Formula One world. We're talking about the most dominant driver of the last generation, a champion who has built much of his legacy alongside Red Bull and who has become the team's main image. Losing Verstappen would mean Milton Keynes would have to reinvent itself from scratch, find a new leader on the track, and rebuild a winning culture that, for years, has relied on Max's talent and competitive nature. Furthermore, Red Bull would lose its most important technical figure, a driver capable of pushing a car to the limit even when the car isn't perfect, and that could completely destabilize its future prospects. For Mercedes, on the other hand, the signing of Verstappen would represent a true coup de grace. It would mean placing the most feared rival of recent years in his seat, just as a whole new technical era begins with the 2026 hybrid rules. This would allow them to gain time, minimize risks, and start off with the guarantee of having the most effective and consistent driver on the grid. Furthermore, there is enormous marketing value behind his potential arrival. Verstappen has a very strong fan base around the world, especially in the Netherlands, which would strengthen Mercedes' image and rejuvenate its brand image following Lewis Hamilton's departure. Added to this, is the impact he would have within the team itself, where Max could become the new natural leader and help refine the development of young talents like Andrea Kimi Antonelli, preventing them from taking on the pressure too soon. On a sporting level, the change would also dramatically transform the balance of power. Red Bull would go from having its key man to facing him as a direct rival, with all the information and knowledge Max has accumulated over years of developing cars in Milton Keynes. This would give Mercedes a clear strategic advantage, as Verstappen could provide a very precise insight into the RB21's strengths and weaknesses and its future development. This information, translated into an ambitious technical project like the one Brackley is preparing, could turn Mercedes into an unstoppable threat to the other teams. Nor should we forget the consequences this would have on the grid itself. Verstappen's arrival at Mercedes would force other pieces to be moved. George Russell would have to adapt to sharing a garage with a very dominant driver, or even look for other options if his seat were compromised. In the coming months, Verstappen's fate will directly depend on Red Bull's on-track performance. The team knows that the window to retain him won't be sustained only by contracts, but by clear and consistent results. That's why they've put all their effort into the updates that will arrive between Austria and Silverstone, confident that these improvements will allow them to fight for victories again and dispel any temptation for change in Max's mind. It's a race against time because the pressure from Mercedes won't go away, and any hesitation Verstappen displays will be immediately seized upon by Toto Wolff to get even closer to his team. Performance in these upcoming rounds will not only determine the championship standings, but will also determine Max's confidence in his team and the project in the medium term. At the same time, planning for 2026 is already being prepared in the offices. The factories are developing their first prototypes for the new hybrid era, and that process will define where each team could be in 2 years. Mercedes already boasts very promising advances in its new engine, something that greatly appeals to Verstappen, as it would give him the opportunity to launch a dominant run from day one. Red Bull, on the other hand, needs to convince him that they will remain just as competitive when the rules change, but that requires technical stability and clear leadership within the team. If helmet marco weakens or personnel changes occur, Max's perception of the future of the project could suffer, and that's where Mercedes wants to take advantage of any gap to launch its final offer. In terms of the calendar, the key moment will be the summer break. During those weeks, teams usually negotiate behind closed doors and review their drivers' release clauses to anticipate market movements. If Red Bull manages to reach the break with solid results and Verstappen comfortable in the fight for the championship, it will have a much better chance of keeping him focused and neutralizing Mercedes' siege. In short, all signs point to Verstappen being at the center of a veritable storm of rumors, negotiations, and strategic maneuvers. His talent, his competitive nature, and his championship status make him the most coveted driver on the grid, and that means any team is willing to move heaven and earth to have him on their team. Mercedes has made it clear that its interest is not a mere hallway rumor, but a real intention, backed even by internal conversations within his own team. Toto Wolff sees Verstappen as the perfect fit to kickstart the new era of hybrid engines with a dream lineup, and he won't hesitate to make room for him if the opportunity arises. Red Bull, for its part, lives under constant pressure to retain its star player, knowing that without Max the project would lose much of its identity and competitive strength. Therefore, now more than ever, the spotlight is on Verstappen and his decisions. His silence on the subject, combined with measured statements in which he doesn't rule out future changes, keeps the tension alive and fuels speculation. Fans, engineers, rivals, and even sponsors will be closely following every step of the way because the outcome of this story could reshape the entire Formula One grid for years to come. And right now, every race, every result, every technical improvement counts because it will be the basis for Max to decide whether he wants to continue trusting Red Bull or whether he prefers to pursue a new project full of ambition and with the promise of regaining dominance. So I want to know what you think. Do you think Verstappen should stay at Red Bull and consolidate his legacy with the team that made him champion? Or do you think he'll risk everything to wear the silver medal and seek new challenges with Mercedes? Leave me your opinion in the comments.